Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 8th, 2022 at approximately 6:36 a.m. PST. Today's going to be a little different, I think, because of a simple little fact. Now, before I get into it, something to keep in mind. If you like the videos, absolutely subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, because apparently that has something to do with the algorithm for YouTube. But give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot of information coming through. Now, today's going to be a very special one, and it was suggested I leave this until I calm down a little. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time just in case. Okay, the reason I classify myself as a spiritual guide is because the tools that I offer here are the same ones I personally use. The philosophies in life that I work with are the same that I promote are the same ones I personally work with. Okay, or personally live by. With that in mind, there are only three laws I follow. Okay, they're the three karmic laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Now, 2 days ago, I had a problem that threw me completely offline. Okay, and I'll get to that in 30 seconds here. But when you start looking at your life to get it moving in the right direction, take a look at your heart first. Okay, at what you feel is right, because that first karmic law, you must be true to you first. If you're not right here, you're going to have a hard time doing anything else. And I shouldn't say you're going to, but it's very likely you will. Okay, and the reason for that is because until you get that impetus here, it's going to throw you off track. You've got to have that before the mind can work things out. Now, when I take a look at things, I've told you before, I've mentioned to you many times before, I do see past lives. I remember mine. Well, I don't only remember the past lives, I also remember the in-between life. This is why I tell people, regardless of what your belief is, if you believe there's a heaven, if you believe there's a hell, if you believe there's nothing there at all, you just get buried, you get laid in a plot and you rot, your body decays and that's where it ends. If you believe you get put in a box and you sit there until you rot, okay, or until somebody wakes you up and says it's time to go. All of these things exist. It's kind of a weird setup. But I've talked to many people that have passed away, and of course I've done it myself more often than I care to count. But here's why, for me, this is a very special issue. 2 days ago, to the evening, what's today? This is Tuesday, so the evening of the Sunday night evening, I got the unfortunate piece of information that my eldest brother, one of the greatest minds that I've had, that I actually had the pleasure this lifetime of dealing with head on, of talking to. Quite frankly, my eldest brother was the one responsible for teaching me how to analyze. In a world where I was very much a misfit, where my emotions were very uncontrolled, due to a number of things, but I used to go from dead calm to absolutely trying to kill somebody. Usually it may end up being one of my brothers. But my eldest brother, I found out Friday night, I found out about Sunday night, found out about the fact that he had passed away. Now, this is the man that when I was growing up, he had the most frustrating method of answering a question. I'd ask him a question, it wouldn't matter what it was. He would ask a question in return. He very seldom ever gave anybody a definitive, here's an answer. Okay. And I will tell you, I've been out of touch with him, for probably 20 years. I only talk to him twice a year. On his birthday or my birthday, depending on how schedules worked, or on Christmas at some point. Now, this is something I am going to say very emphatically. If you've got a family member that you've lost contact with, for whatever reason, make the effort to reconnect with them. Okay, I've only got two brothers left. They're still alive. Now, with my second eldest brother, he died a decade ago. But his last year of life, he was trapped in his own body. Couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't do nothing. And he finally died. For him, that was a blessing. Now, my eldest brother, the one that just passed, was very overweight. He had a lot of challenges. Okay. But when I talked to him, he was at just over 325 pounds. And he was so happy. He was in the hospital because of an accident. And he was sitting in the hospital, and because of the diet, he was dropping weight. And he was somewhere around 330, and he says, I was talking to him while he was in the hospital, and he says, at the rate I'm going before I get out of the hospital, I'll get below 325, and then I hope I can get down below that. Well, I talked to him the day before he got out of the hospital, and he was so happy. He had broken the 325. He absolutely decimated. He was down to 319. Right. So I found that out at the end of the phone call, and I talked to him once when he got home. Very upbeat, very happy, and for him, that was amazing. But very happy, really looking forward to getting on. He had started learning a new programming language because he was a phenomenal programmer. Right. But he was looking forward to getting back into studying this new computer language. So he had a lot. At 64 years old, he was getting ready to live his life. And I strongly encourage you, if you're at that age where you're looking at your life going, I've got to this point. Like, I'm 58 myself. Okay. So, am I getting on? Certainly. But on the other hand, both my parents lived until they were 81. But if you're sitting here, if you're looking in the mirror and going, oh, I'm getting on, I can't do anything, that's where you pull your head out of the sand right away. My brother at 64 was learning a new computer. He was staying in his industry. But understand, with a bad leg and other medical complications, he only had a limited number of things he could do. He was sticking with his career with computer programming. But there was a very definitive sense of him having a renewed sense of life. He was looking to move forward. So how far he got? Well, obviously not very far, because he went home, and within a week, he got out of the hospital, got back into his house, and like he said, my goal right now is to get my leg working so I can use the stairs, because he was living in a 3-bedroom house. Right, and he couldn't go up and down the stairs. So his immediate goal was get back to be able to work, or to be able to walk, get back home and get on with life. He managed it. Okay, granted only for a couple of days, but there was no way this man was going to give up and die in the hospital. I talked to him once when he was at home, and he was, very happy, and very, very much animated, ready to get back with life. If you're at that age, if you're up around my age or older, and you're starting, or for that matter, younger, and you're starting to feel, I've got nowhere to go, there's nothing left in my life. A very important message here. Get over that side of it in a real hurry. And it's not a question of get over it because you're whining. It really isn't. Changing the direction your life is going is a challenge. Okay. But, my eldest brother, he was the one directly responsible for me confirming how to deal with the fact that I've got past life memories that are rather emphatic. I spent 3 hours talking to him about one lifetime in particular, and I asked him, I says, what do I do with it? Right, I don't want to know if it's right or wrong. don't need you to prove to me or explain to me whether what I'm seeing is real. What I require is for you to listen to what I've got, listen to the evidence, and on a purely logical base, tell me what to do with the info. Well, 3 hours later, with Mom and Dad sitting sitting on the couch beside us, they were sitting on their chairs, we were sitting on ours. 3 hours later, my eldest brother looks at me and goes, look, he says, you're talking about past lives, right? He says, in today's world, there is no way you're going to get physical proof of your memories. However, and he says, the history books won't help a lot because they have been skewed badly. Now, this was a man with an IQ tested in excess of 180. From what I understand, he turned down becoming a member of Mensa 6 times. They kept approaching him, and he went, no, go away. Actually, he said it in a much more interesting way, but he listened to the whole story. And he goes, okay, he says, you're not going to get evidence, so you have to rely on circumstantial. Now, to be clear, he says, circumstantial evidence is what the police use to determine if somebody is innocent or guilty when they've got a lack of physical evidence. He says, in your case, with what you've just laid out, he goes, you've got enough circumstantial evidence to convict somebody of murdering someone who died 100 years before the accused was born. I said, great, so what do I do with it? He goes, the only logical thing you can do, and this is the thing with him, here's a logical approach. He goes, the only logical thing you can do is take a look at the evidence, take a look at what you remember, and look at that as though it is absolutely real. Carry on your life, live your life as your memories dictate, but keep an eye open for that one piece of information that may derail the whole thing, because it may or may not exist. Now, net result, I went, okay, that lifetime, because I really focused on one specific lifetime, and no, I'm not going to tell you before anybody writes me, I'm not going to be telling you what lifetime that was. But suffice it to say, it was big enough that I didn't desire to, I was looking at it going, no way. Okay, but after that conversation with him, it was like, okay, let's go with it. If that is the most logical way to deal with it, I will. Net result, I'm still here. Now you get to figure out if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But like I said, don't bother sending questions as to what this past life was. Doesn't matter. What does matter is if you've got memories of your past lives, look at the evidence. Whether you're talking to strangers, whether you're talking to people that are specialized in past life regressions. I've been asked by a number of people about their past lives. Okay. And there's something you got to remember. When you're talking about past lives, it's great to listen to what other people say, but it is far more effective to write down what you remember and piece it together, because then you know you're dealing with memory. It is very easy to guide somebody on a vision quest or to guide somebody on a past life memory. Okay, very easy. If you're in the process, and I found this out with hypnotism as well, if you're trying to get clarity out of someone or helping them remember, okay, if they say that, if, for instance, they're talking about the configuration of somebody, when they say, well, the person looks like this. And then the thing is, you can ask them something like, do they have anything on their head? Right, to try and help bring a picture in. Not what is on their head, but do they have anything? If they say yes, then you start going, you ask questions that do not have a definitive answer. For instance, you can go, what color is their hair? without a problem. But if you start going, does the person have red hair? The person's mind will immediately focus on that. Okay. Now, the message, most of the time I get a really sound message with the people that are passing over, especially if they're related to me. I got a real solid one from mom, from dad, from my eldest brother, or second eldest brother when he passed. With this one that just passed, the message I got from him in a way was, he just got out of the hospital. I just phoned him. He literally picked up the phone. He says, I'm on my way out the door to go get groceries. I got some errands. I want to go and run. This was a man that was driven for life. He'd spent the last month in the hospital. And part of it can be chalked up to the fact that he was in the hospital for a month. But the message I got from him was this. You've only got so much time. Get off your tail feathers and live your life. Do not pay too much attention to people that say you can't do that. Absolutely. Like in my case, if I were to start thinking about running up and down the stairs and somebody were to say, that's a bad idea, I've got a bad leg. It's definitely a bad idea. Okay. But the message I got from my brother was, you've only got so much life and you don't know how much time you've got left. Check the bottom of your foot. My guess is, even if the doctor has told you you're dying, I'm betting you don't have an expiry date. It'll be written right. If you've got one, check the bottom of your foot right behind the ball of the foot, right in the arch. Okay, because that's where it won't wear out, because most people actually don't walk on their arch, except those of you that have flat feet. But if there's no expiry date, then the doctor's diagnosis that you're going to be dead within X amount of time is not necessarily accurate. However, okay, this is something else, and something I'm definitely going to be doing in the next little while here, is make sure you've got your estate in order. So that when everything goes away, when everything passes, you no longer have to worry about it. Okay. Now, talk to your own estate people, the people that the ones that handle your will. Talk to your own lawyer or the person helping you plan out the will. I don't know about your country. I know in Canada there is a way to make sure that all of your stuff, that there doesn't actually have to be a will to worry about, because everything can be set in trust so that when you die, it automatically goes to that person. Okay. Now, two big factors. One, get your estate in order. One, do not ever give up on life. The reality is we've been going through an absolute disaster the last few years. Okay, just starting to get over COVID. Just starting to open things up, and some genius decides that we need a war. Don't know why. Don't agree with wars. Don't see a point to them. Okay. But my brother made it very clear his actions when he got out of the hospital were absolutely on the money. Do not quit living. Okay. If you've got medical holdups, absolutely pay attention to them. If you've got physical limitations, absolutely pay attention and live within your limits. Like I've told some people, the one thing I refuse to let, and I do not control people. I point out what's going on. I point out the way I've dealt with situations and the way that you can deal with them. The one thing that I can, and in time it may come where it's possible, but the reality of it is this. If you're blind, driving is not going to be one of your options, at least not in all likelihood. Working on a way to get around that. Okay. But that said, it was a very simple outlook. He gets out of the hospital, and all of a sudden his energy is spiked. Now, part of it was because he'd been locked up for a month. Okay. But the energy I got off him was, get up off your tail feathers and make your life happen. Do not worry about whether other people agree with it, as long as you're staying within the law. My second eldest brother, when he passed, he told me flat out, he said, look, growing up, mom and dad are going to we're encouraging us to think for ourselves, to have, to motivate ourselves, etc. He says, but as we get older, you're going to find that they start disagreeing with your choices, the ones they encouraged you to develop. He says, whatever you do, and this is my message from him to you, whatever your goals, okay, do not give up on them based on somebody else. As long as you're following karmic law, as long as you're not deliberately hurting somebody else, ignore the idea that you can't do something. I always took a page from Colonel Sanders, the originator of what is currently referred to as KFC. Used to be called Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it was neat because I looked at him and it's like, from my understanding, he was 65 when he opened his first chicken stand. And I figured, I'm only 58. I'll be 59 in 2 months, right? My eldest brother was 64, just before he was getting to that point of having to retire. And of course, he wasn't looking at retiring. It was funny because I talked to him about it. And he said, well, I could retire at, a couple of years ago I talked about it. He says, I could retire at 60. But he says, if I wait 5 years, I've got a little bit better recovery pack spaces. I'll probably work until I'm 70. Now, with that in mind, okay, I'm 58. I'll be 59 in a couple of months. That puts me still working a decade down the road. But I was looking at Colonel Sanders. Going at 65, he figured out what he wanted to do. He's a household name now. Okay. In my case, 58, and I'm absolutely certain what I desire to do. I've got the 12 books in the Yldrbac Chronicles, and I am going to get those written. It's going to take me a few years, but it gives me something to focus on. As I mentioned on FaceTime the other day. What was that? As I mentioned on FaceTime, on Facebook, right? I've got a partner, and my intention is very simple. This is the last one I'm planning on. Of course, when they get around to dying, I'll probably need a new wife. Because, much as I have had a run-in with death more often than I care to count. Okay, actually, I keep trying to keep tabs on. I think I'm over 10 times at this point, where my heart stopped just a mess. But the trick is you don't give up. Pay attention to your limitations. Pay attention to the logical side of things. Okay, because it's absolutely imperative that you work within your own physical limits. But don't let people tell you what you can't do just because it's different. Okay. If you've got a project that you put on hold, for whatever reason, okay, take a look at it, because completing that project may be all the effort you need. Getting this first book of mine done. Getting The Birth of the Wolfpack in print was a massive step for me. Do not give up. I know a few writers that wrote. I know of one writer in particular, and their other half wrote a story, and they were really happy with it. Took it to a publisher. Okay, and the publisher said, no, it's not good enough. Okay, or more to the point, they said it wasn't long enough. And I'm telling you, okay, especially for this person, pick that manuscript back up. Go back over with it. Make sure you're content with it. But do not give up on your dreams. Okay, you can give up on your dreams when you're dead. Okay, myself, because of the way I look at lives, I'm living this life to the best of my ability. Okay, my oldest brother gave me one heck of a wake-up call. It's like, get off your tail. Okay, regardless of the health. Now, I'm in a lot better shape than I used to be in. I'm in better shape now than I was 10 years ago. But, my eldest brother, happier than heck he got down under 320 pounds. Okay, a lot of work involved. Do not kid yourself. These newfangled medications that are coming out and concoctions that people say, oh, you can drop 50 pounds in a month. You may be able to. But the instant gratification cost is not going to do you a lot of good. Okay, but like I said, working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, and this is why you turn to people that inspire you. Turn to people that say, hey, I can make this happen. Now, I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I am not ignoring the fact that I've lost my eldest brother. Okay, there's only 3 of us left. But what I do know is I've already, because of my finances, I've been in steady contact with my younger brother, getting that organized. And thankfully, that's running smoothly now. But my older brother, the one that's still left, I've already decided I'm going to do my level best. I won't be traveling much, I just don't anymore. But I will establish a better communication line with him because, quite frankly, he's a couple of years older than I am. And as my eldest brother made blatantly obvious by passing away a little early, as he made blatantly obvious, I don't have time to wait for my ego to get out of the way. I remember things about my childhood that my eldest brother has forgotten. And like he said, I made connection just before my mom passed. Right. And as the one brother told me, he says, look, I don't remember what you're talking about, but the fact that you still do says it happened. You may not remember the transgressions that your friends and family remember. But if they're remembering it and it's having an emotional impact, the reality is, in all likelihood, it happened. If not, let's just assume for a moment it's their imagination. Now understand, I am not talking about making restitution with anybody. I'm not talking about getting compensation from anybody. I'm referring to the communication line. Do not waste the time you have hanging on to past bitterness. Lord knows I did it for way, way, way too long. Okay, and this is not to say that anybody in my life is perfect. Lord knows I'm not. Okay, but the reality of it is, my eldest brother's passing has opened a phenomenal door, and it just swung the door off its hinges, I'm sure of it. Because after yesterday was a write-off, I took a day off. I literally, for only, let's see, in the last 20 years, I was sent home once because, understand, I work on a phone. I was sent home once for a couple of days because I had severe laryngitis. And I don't know, apparently talking on the phone when you've got laryngitis doesn't work well. Right. I called in sick twice. Once because of a massive heart attack that put me in hospital, and once because of an annoying stroke that put me in the hospital. And then I took a day off when my mom died, and I took a day off when my dad died, and I took the day off now that my eldest brother has died. The other brother that died, I didn't take a day off for because, well, frankly, for him, I hadn't talked to him for a year. He'd been trapped in his body without being able to talk, speak, and acknowledge anything for a year. So I did the course of the mourning side of things. I did over the course of the year that he was passing away. Before he finally passed. This brother, I took the day off. Thankfully, well, yeah, it was only a day because I'll be back at work tonight. Right. But he left me with one heck of a gift. And that gift is this idea that you only have however long you've got here. And check the bottom of your foot. That'll tell you if you've got a time limit to work with. If not, procrastination in getting your estate in order and getting the stuff in place as to what you desire to have happen with it when you pass. Don't wait around. Don't hang on to the stuff that you don't have a use for. Okay. Give it to people that can use it. I take a lot of my stuff down to a thrift store. Yes, they make money on it, but it gets it out of my house. But I also check with people before I get rid of it now to see if they need it, so I can just give it to them. Okay. So I am telling you, stop waiting for things to happen. You desire your life to get better. Your turn to get up and get it better. Your turn to make this happen. Okay. Because if you don't take the time to make this happen, you're the one that's going to suffer for it. Because I'll tell you, I should have done it a long time ago. I did not. So far. Okay. And I didn't realize this until they were gone. So this is why I'm passing it on to you. I should have had a bit more time. I should have spent more time with my parents and with my eldest brother. Not to mention with the others, but those three are gone. I cannot do anything about it. With the second older brother, I had a solid connection with him all through our life. We were very connected. So it wasn't quite the same thing. But with my eldest and with my mom and dad, I did not take the time to really spend time with them. I'm urging you, absolutely get up and make sure that you're spending time with them and with your kids. If your kid comes up and wants to hug you, let him, because I will tell you, there'll come a time when he won't be there to hug you. And or he won't be there to, shall we say, we'll go the negative way. When they're lipping off, you absolutely don't tolerate the lipping off, but do not make the mistake of disowning them. Okay, you yourself went through childhood, you went through your rebellious years, you went through your teenage years and what have you. Your kids will make mistakes. Your other half will make mistakes. Now, I made it very clear with my current other half that the one mistake, and I tell people you can work through virtually anything. Okay, for me, I set I set certain rules, certain boundaries, and this is for me. And I don't have any fear of it, really. But as I told my other half, the one thing that there will be no coming back from is a breach of fidelity. There just will not be a return from that. That'll be the end of it. Right. Fortunately, this same woman that I made this comment to has been with me now for over a year and a half. Okay. And we've never had so much as a fight. And we haven't even had so much as an argument. But the message my eldest brother left me, and I'm passing on to you. Life is as long as life is. You can have all the plans in the world. Do not wait for them. Okay. I've got it sitting up, where is it? Up in that stack of duotangs that you see up there. Of folders and what have you. In there somewhere, I have the corporate superstructure for a healing center. Okay, one where this will not be nonprofit. It will not be a corporation, because I will not put a board of directors. I will put a board of advisors together, but I will not give anybody the board of directorship. It will be mine. Call that greedy, call it what you will. It's very simple. My understanding, and I've seen it happen way too often, and all the reassurances in the world when you're in the state I'm in, won't change it. Okay. I've seen way too many companies taken from the owner. Oh, well, I will carry that thought on tomorrow. This is way longer than I was expecting, but this was literally because, as I said, I just lost my eldest brother. Okay, just 2 days ago I found out about it. So I'm going to bring this to a close, and I'll leave you with this thought. Now is the time to live. Working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, so I will leave you with that, and I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.